I'm Pigtail Gurl. Get ready to open your brain gates. In this episode of the Time Chronicles, we do a deep dive into all things related to the Mandela Effect. This show isn't a repeat of the same Mandela Effect claims that have been on the net for years. We know that you have questions. We have answers. All of them. This includes the original research that proved and revealed that Nelson Mandela is an authentic, time-shift, living dead person. We also tell you about other TSLD people.
I'm Starfire Tor. The Mandela Effect has captivated a lot of people. This is because so many people are drawn to the topic of alternate timelines with alternate memories. Now, I can tell you, as the person who discovered coexisting timelines and the time shift effect, that we do exist in an untold number of coexisting timelines. Sometimes the brain can recall fragmented memories from some of these coexisting timelines. This causes a timeline memory conflict because both memories are real, but only one of them relates to the current dominant timeline. Now, the brain can also create false memories that seem like real ones. Well, we know how to tell the difference. And you're going to find that out in this show. So, brain gates open. Here we go.
The Mandela Effect solved and explained.
Now, as everyone is looking at the image here of most of the Mandela Effect mysteries, wonderments, and questions, we're going to answer all of these, every single one. But before we do, we're going to go over how your brain works. Why? Because in order to really understand the Mandela Effect, you have to understand a little bit more about your brain, how it stores memories, and how it calls them back so that you can have an accurate memory. You'll see. You'll enjoy it.
Learn how to understand, protect, and smarten up your brain by learning how your memory is stored, retrieved, and can unknowingly be altered by you or an outside influence.
Open your brain gates. Next, please. Panel 5.
Your memories are not stored in your brain as complete memories.
Your brain takes your memories apart and stores the pieces in different brain areas, such as the hippocampus, the neocortex, the amygdala, cerebellum, and prefrontal cortex. Now, memories are broken up for storage depending on whether they involve sight, sound, touch, smell, emotion, or motor skills. Your memories are also assigned storage areas based on the need to be a long-term memory or a short-term memory. The brain makes all of these storage decisions without you consciously or unconsciously being involved.
When you recall a memory, your brain has to put it back together like a jigsaw puzzle. This brain storage system can fail to put all the memory pieces back together properly. This creates memory flaws. The brain doesn't like missing memory pieces. It wants the memory to be whole, so the brain fills in the missing memory parts without concern to whether the substituted memory is real or false. Whether caused internally or externally, this is how false memories alter your real memories. Awareness leads to prevention. From the case files of Starfire Tor. Starfire Tor began a time shift living dead investigation into Nelson Mandela in 1994. A request was made for anyone to report a time shift effect that they believe they experienced. A time shift effect general description was given. There was no mention of Mandela, nor any other specific person or event.
That's right. So when I put this generic request out, I received thousands upon thousands of responses. They came in through lots of different portals that I had open, and they came from all around the world. Now, of these, over 20,000 reports were about Nelson Mandela being a time shift living dead person. Now, before I discovered what a time shift living dead person was, there was something called the alive again, dead again phenomenon. But it was a mystery to people. I solved it. So that's why I named it the time shift living dead, because this describes the mechanism of the event. Okay? Now, remember, I did not say anyone have any memories of Nelson Mandela dying twice? No. I was very, very careful not to do anything that would prompt people to give me an answer or response that I wanted. And I certainly didn't give anybody's name because, again, I don't want to create a false memory scenario. Part of my research into the core matrix and time shifts and all of this is not to create a false memory. Very important, okay? So when I get over 20,000 reports from all over the world that they remember about Nelson Mandela being a time shift living dead person, I'm perking up. Now, another thing that I have never, ever revealed in public, and I'm doing this here, Pigtail Gurl, for the very, very first time, because it's important to this show. When I talk about time shift living dead people, I have never, ever, ever admitted that on any of them, whether I too have a time shift living dead memory of any of these people. Also, and by the way, I'm going to now, for the first time, tell what I remembered. So you hear a lot about me talking about well-known people, celebrities. But that's only because in doing this type of research, more people in the world know celebrities than they know your Aunt Giselda, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more likely for me to get feedback for my research on people that are well known all around the world. But so I have been able to confirm over 100 people. It's not just Mandela. Just I happen to have gone public with Mandela because so many people around the world knew who he was. That was the only reason. But as we move along, you're going to see that there are a lot more. Okay? So, but private people too, obviously, have these experiences with people they know, their family members, and I've researched a lot of those too, but they remain private. All right. Now, so my memory, and I did have a memory of Mandela dying and then coming back alive. And this was in 1994. So most of the reports that I got of this over 20,000, only 342 of them reported that they have a memory of Mandela dying in prison. But I already knew that that was not the way it went down. I myself didn't have a memory of that. And in order for me to double check my own brain, because I have to check my brain too, to make sure that I'm not having a brain situation where my compartmentalized memories are being called up and I'm misremembering, say, some other person or some similar person that might be like a Mandela, and I'm just mixing them up. You know, that happens all the time. Mostly people mix up actors and the roles that they played, or people who sing songs and they get the wrong band or the wrong singer. Happens all the time. So I went I went and did a deep dive for myself before I ever put out this poll on just generically the time shift effect. And I discovered that there was a man named Steve Biko who I had never heard of before, but Steve Biko was arrested and jailed in 1977. And Steve Biko died while in custody. South Africa, country. He and Mandela wanted very similar goals. It doesn't matter what those goals were. The point is that Mr. Biko died while in custody after having been arrested, jailed. And so when I got these 342 odd memories, I needed to know, is this a false memory? Are they thinking of Biko? Because I'd already checked to see if my own brain had done that, but I didn't even know who Biko was. I'm sorry, I just didn't. So I sent back to these 342 people a questionnaire, and all I did was, without triggering anything, I said, great, please do some research and just confirm to me whether you find that there's any other similar type person that might have been arrested, might have been in prison or jail, and see if that, jogs your memory or not. Okay. Of these 342 questionnaires, which I sent back to these people, almost 300 of them got back to me, and all of these almost 300 people said Biko. Oops, they had confused it with Biko. And the other around 50 never got back to me, so I had to write those off. So basically, over 20,000 people remembered that Mandela had died after he got out of prison. He was in prison for 27 years. And only a very few of them, up against the 20,000 plus, knew that he died sometime after he got out of prison. Now, I'll tell you something else about it. When he got out of prison in 1990, and this is my memory too, and this, by the way, is the memory of over 20,000 people who responded to my questionnaire. Have you had a time shift effect? Remember, not, do you have a memory of Mandela? No. I've never done that. Okay? So the memory is he got out of prison and he was like on the go right away. He was doing things, getting things done. He was traveling around the world. He even came to the States. He won the Pulitzer Peace Prize. I think that was in 1993. But he died before he ever campaigned or won being the leader of his country. He never got there. He died from an illness that he had contracted while he was in prison. I think it was a lung thing, tuberculosis or something. So my time shift living dead memory was jogged when, he died. It was a big thing. He was, known all around the world. Suddenly, he's dead. And then in the same year, just like months later, not only is he alive, but now he's the leader of his country. Whoa. So then when I have over 20,000 other people who have the same memory, that's really important. Okay. So that's a little bit about how you don't trigger a false memory and why this research is the real deal and it works great. Now, here you see in this image, this is really important because this is where I bring the receipts. It's very important that you understand that my history with Mandela and the Time Shift Living Dead goes back to 1994. This Mandela Effect thing, I'm sorry to tell you, is very much based on my work and my research. I did go on Art Bell's Coast to Coast show in 2009. But what I want to show you here, guys, is and I know Pigtail Gurl, you know this very, very well. This is just part of the real history of the whole thing. I had a research list some decades ago, and one of the people that was on it was Art Bell. Now, what you're seeing here is a post in my group. Thousands of people were reading this. Here it is in 1999. He's responding to my post where I'm talking about Nelson Mandela as a time shift living dead person. Okay? So, and here I am going, do any of you have a TSLD Mandela experience? I'm able to ask this question here because I had already proven it years ago, back in 94. So here, it's already done. So here, I'm not worried about a false memory, okay? Art Bell writes, in response to what I posted about Mandela, he goes, I like the way you understand the subject matter. You're a unique and smart and hooked in. Keep reporting more about Mandela and other time shifts effect info that you have. And then he writes more. You can go back and freeze frame that and take a look yourself. So next, please.
From the case files of Starfire Tor, how a blended memory mix-up of Steve Biko and Nelson Mandela became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Okay, now we just got over talking about how, about 300 people mixed up Biko and Mandela. Now, created this image for everybody. Please look at it. This is how your brain can mix up people and create a false memory. You don't intend to do it, but the brain does it. Okay, so on the left, we have Biko, South Africa, arrested in 1977, died in custody in 1977. And on the right, you have Mandela, South Africa, arrested in 1962, released in 1990. So here we have on the left, you see I have this thing, Biko, 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 and on the right, Mandela, 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 blend. Then you go up and you have Biko, Mandela, blend. And then because Mandela lived a lot longer, he was more celebrated, Mandela becomes the main memory that you have. And that's how it works. It's simple when you know. So, lesson learned here, when you have a memory that you think someone has died and now they're alive, or reverse that, alive, dead, dead, alive, it can happen more than once. Always do some research to see whether you have a mix-up memory with two different people. Like I said, it happens all the time. Okay, next one.
Nelson Mandela is an authentic time shift living dead person.
A time shift living dead event is a real event involving dual timeline memory conflicts. Now, a time shift living dead event is a time shift effect. A time shift effect involves experiencing any seemingly impossible physical or other changes in the timeline involving dominant and coexisting timelines. And dual timeline memory conflict is caused by either core matrix time shifts, core matrix timeline edits, core matrix timeline reboots, or dominant timeline fractures.
The Mandela Effect is a false memory operation. Some Mandela Effect false memories are self-created in a person's brain, either by misremembering events, mixing up one event for another, or fabricating events from imagined experiences. Some Mandela Effect false memories enter your brain from outside influences that unintentionally or intentionally alter your memories through false info.
All right, next one, please.
Art Bell interview with Starfire Tor on Coast to Coast, November 20th, 2009. Excerpt from the show's description. Another time anomaly which Tor discussed was what she called a time shift living dead person. This phenomenon happens when one remembers knowing that someone has died, but then later finds out that they are actually alive. One such instance of this occurring, she said, is Nelson Mandela, a case often mentioned by art on C2C in the past. Tor suggested that this enigmatic scenario is the result of a time shift, where in the new timeline, the person is no longer dead. As a result, she said, the brain develops a dual memory timeline conflict, where one remembers a past event that no longer happened.
Okay, so thanks. This is just wrapping up that bit where I showed you that Art Bell was on my research list 10 years before I did his show. And the funny thing is, I got to tell you, when Art Bell was on my list, I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know anything about Coast to Coast, or he's just, one of the people there. Now, what Pigtail Gurl just read is an excerpt from what the show wrote about what I said on this show. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll find out that I was on Coast to Coast months before this, also talking about this. Now, I'm bringing this up, and Pigtail Gurl was talking about the Mandela Effect as a false memory operation. That's exactly what it is. And now the world has pretty much caught on to that. This is why it's very important, why this show is very important, because people who are interested in the Mandela Effect are very, very drawn toward there being multiple timelines. And I told you, there are. And you can have actual real memories of more than one timeline. Yes, you can. Because I'm the person that discovered this and researched this and proved this decades ago. Now, when I knew that I was going to go past my just personal pages and my research list, and I was going to be talking to a wider view of people, like on Coast to Coast and other shows that I did. It's not the first time I talked about Mandela in public. I knew that I needed to put something in there to stop people reporting false memory information to me. And I consulted with some of the people that were experts in false memories. And I decided that I was going to put in what I knew was a false memory, so that if anybody fed this back to me afterwards, or I heard this out in the world, I would know that that was not real. And so what I put out was, when people said it, that Nelson Mandela died in prison. That's false. I put that out because I knew that it was Biko. And some people may be mixing that up, but the person who started the Mandela Effect and started the Mandela Effect website, which was taken down, claimed in writing on that website that the person's memory was of Mandela dying in prison. And of course, that's not correct. So I knew that this person either had a false memory or was just trying to repeat something that I put out there that this person heard either on Coast to Coast or somewhere else. And unfortunately, because of the way that false memories work, this person also made very clear on their website that they were looking to write a book, that they were looking for something that was buzzworthy, and decided that my research was it. Didn't use my name. I'm not in there anywhere. But by putting this information out and asking for people to report on their memories on Mandela, this began a false memory operation. I can't say I know whether this person understood that, but it crashed any of further research into that I could possibly do. But it also gives Pigtail Gurl and I a big opportunity to help you out, to separate out the Mandela Effect, which is a false memory operation, to real dual memory conflicts, real multiple coexisting timelines. which is why when we go into actually showing you all of your Mandela Effect wonderments and we explain what they are, how they're solved, you'll understand that you really need to leave the Mandela Effect in your rearview mirror and move into what's real, the time shift effect and the time shift living dead. And we're just making the case for you, and we're going to open your brain gauge for you and show you how to do it. Next, please.
Earth's many coexisting timelines, discovered and researched by Starfire Tor.
Earth has a single dominant timeline, plus many, many coexisting timelines. All coexisting timelines exist in the same space. They are separated only by their own individual frequencies. There are no parallel timelines. New dominant timelines are created when the core matrix enacts time shifts, timeline edits, or timeline reboots. All of these employ editing elements in Earth's dominant timeline. This causes a new dominant timeline to form. So the old dominant timeline is retired, but preserved as a coexisting timeline that continues to stream. All of our consciousness go into the dominant timeline. So dual timeline memory conflicts occur when people retain memories from both dominant and related coexisting timelines. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone's having a little bit of difficulty, if you're new here, understanding what the core matrix is, I'd like to just add in here that you can go and check out some of the previous shows where we go into more depth in explaining the core matrix, how it works, what's the mechanism there. So do check out the older shows on the channel if you'd like to know more about the core matrix.
Right. Thank you. All right. Next, please.
The Time Shift Living Dead, discovered and researched by Starfire Tor.
Okay. So a time shift living dead person is an enigma caused by a time shift event. In this time shift event, the core matrix enacts a timeline edit that creates an altered, new, coexisting timeline. Okay. This new edited coexisting timeline, which is now becomes the dominant coexisting timeline until the next timeline edit. So when a new dominant coexisting timeline is created through timeline editing, the core matrix activates an assimilation program that causes the conscious brain to believe that we only live in a single timeline world. But sometimes there is a glitch in the assimilation program. And this can cause some people to experience a dual coexisting timeline memory conflict. When this happens, a person is able to remember some events from a previous coexisting timeline that no longer exists in the new dominant coexisting timeline. In some cases, the same person can be alive in one coexisting timeline and dead in another. This can happen due to the editing of events and not because a person is targeted. Okay, next, please.
Okay, here's some authentic living dead people. A time shift effect discovery by Starfire Tor.
Okay, now I was talking earlier, Pigtail Gurl, that Nelson Mandela is not the only time shift living dead person. And by the way, I never would have called my discoveries after any of the over 100 well-known people that I've researched and documented. For example, this isn't the Bob Hope effect or the Billy Graham effect or the Cicely Tyson effect, you know? They're all equal. I just picked Nelson Mandela out of it, you know? So here's just some of them. And yes, you'll see Ruby the elephant because the time shift living dead event affects animals too. Yeah, and that can be very upsetting to people. And by the way, of the people that you see here in this frame, two of them I actually had the privilege of meeting in person and discussing that they were time shift living dead people. One of them
Wow.
is Clint Walker, the actor. He played Cheyenne in the Western series, and the other one is Della Reese, the fantastic singer and actress, and she was also a minister. Both of these two people knew that they had died and they had come back to life.
Wow. I did not know.
And
That's news to me. I'm hearing this for the first time as well.
Well, this is Della Reese in particular was one of my most fascinating meetups. I generally do not, well, I generally do not attempt to meet well-known people, or anyone actually, but well-known people who have come back from being dead, because it's just too shocking for them. It's rude on my part to harm them in that way. But there are the Della Reese story is so fascinating. Every once in a while, I would go out on what I call psychic jaunts. I'd usually take a friend with me, and one of them is Brandon Scott, the stage magician. Some of you may remember him from my early years when I did a lot of shows with Whitley Strieber and with the Magic Castle time slip that happened to myself when we went to see Brandon and Anne and Whitley Strieber. We actually did some TV shows and a lot of radio shows about the... Okay, so Brandon Scott and I went on one of my psychic jogs, and one of the things that I always wanted to do was to go into this building that I'd seen a couple of times. It looked like a fairy tale. And I just wanted to go inside to see if it was a fairy tale building. And so this was the day I decided, this is when we're going in there, Brandon. So that's what we did. We took the drive all the way there, and we went inside, and it looks just like a fairy tale on the inside too. And you can see at the back of the inside of the building, it looked to be like chairs or pews or something. And we walked down there, and we walked into this place. There was nobody there, and it looked like a little church of some sort. And we sort of looked around for a few minutes, and then a woman comes in, and I recognized her as Della Reese. She said, she walked right up to me and she said, "I've been waiting for you." Now, believe it or not, this is something I've heard people say to me more than once. So Brandon and I fine. So she took us into her office, and she didn't ask my name. She took some things out of her desk, put them on her desk, and she said, "Come here." And so went over there, and she was showing me like newspaper clippings of her life, and she actually had a very traumatic life. A lot of things happened to her, accidents and hospitalizations, and then of course she had this wonderful career. I did not know she was a minister. And one of the things that she showed me was an article that she had died, yeah, and now she was alive. And she said, "Can you explain that to me?" She said she knows she died. She knows she did, and now she was alive, and she felt extremely lucky, like nothing could hurt her. And so over the next hour, while Brandon's there, I explain what a time shift effect is. I explain in detail the time shift living dead, and she totally got it. She was a person of deep faith, and so she looked at it through those lenses. And I let people look, filter what I know in any way that works for them. And I also learned some things from her about that. So we exchanged contact, and one other time she did call me, and she had some more questions. And so I came down there and I met with her. She was not going to stay there for long. She was moving her ministry. And so we talked again. And then that was it. I never talked with her again. I never saw her again. And that was it. So that was one of the times. This wonderful lady. She really was. 2 times I met her and I was able to explain this. The other one was Clint Walker, the actor, singer, and star of Cheyenne and lots of movies and other things. He had had a skiing accident, and I think the ski pole went into his chest. I think it hit his heart. He was rushed to the hospital, but he died. He knows he died. And this is in lots of newspapers, and he did interviews about it. He died. He was pronounced dead on a gurney. He was placed into a room for the next step in the process to happen, whether it was an autopsy or whatever. But on the gurney, he came back to life. And some doctor was passing by, Clint Walker, very memorable looking person, extremely tall, big, fit. And the doctor just, I guess, wanted to take a look and then saw that this person on the gurney was alive and brought him back to life. And he went on with his career, and he lived to be in his 90s. So he also saw this in a very particular way. And he said in his interviews that he knew he died. And he just, to him, it sort of went into a faith thing, very much like Reese. And I had the opportunity to meet him because I had something to do with a cowboy retrospective that was on TV. I had a little something to do there behind the scenes. And there was a lot of downtime there. And there was a set. And so I sort of sidled up to him and sat down, and we started talking. And I had to be very aware, very respectful, not to blunder into an area that would be harmful to his psyche. But I said, I'm so glad that you survived your accident. And he looked at me and he was willing to talk about it. I said, oh yes. He said, that was, a big turning point in my life. I said, I can imagine. He said, I died, I said, so I understand. He said, no. I really died. And then I'm alive again. And I don't understand it. And I thought, there's an opening. So he has a very big presence, but he's a very kind, sweet, gentle personality. And I said, I might know a little bit about how that happened. He goes, you do? I said, if you want to hear it, I'd be glad to tell you what I know, what I think, and see what you think about it. He said, sure. So I did. And he asked a lot of questions, and he said, I believe you. I hear what you're saying. I'm looking into your eyes, and I know you're telling me the truth, and it makes sense to me. And so we spent about half an hour together, and that was it. I never saw him again or spoke to him again. But so that's 2 people right there that I was able to convey this to. And now now the world knows, yes, this happened.
I had to say that I've always wondered if these people had any memory of coming back to life. I've actually wondered about that.
Well, most people don't. Here's the flash. Every single person alive today is a time shift living dead person because the world, as you well know, has been rebooted many times by the core matrix. That means the whole planet went kablooey. So if you were alive at that time, you went kablooey too. Then the core matrix, pulls us back together again, and we're all alive again. So Everyone is. So how many people remember this? Not many. So
Yeah.
so no, most people don't have that memory. The core matrix has that assimilation program. That's a down brain gate that the core matrix does, because it's just humans just they don't really understand the real world. They were living in a false matrix. And the proper matrix, if they were living in a proper matrix, which we're in right now, by the way, which we've done shows on, knowing about you being a time shift living dead is very shocking. So people that are interested, that gravitate toward my work, great. They're ready for it. But I don't just impose it upon the world. I want people to know, because it's a wake up. It's a brain gate opener. I want them to open their brain gates, and this is one way to do it. So we have those shows. Yeah. So what do you think about that, Pigtail Gurl? That I actually was able to talk to these two people.
Yeah, it's great. It seems like it was a little bit of destiny working there within the timeline. People who wanted the answers, somehow they were drawn to you and you were drawn to them in the moment to explain it to them, and they were open to it. So
yeah, they got a lot out of it, but I did too. I did too. This was such a joyful moment for me to actually talk to these people and have them so receptive to it. Why don't we go on to the next?
Yeah. So here we have, from the case files of Starfire Tor, a partial list of time shift living dead people.
Right, the well-known ones. I think I've got over 60 people here, and this is, about half. You can, people who are watching this, you can go back and you can freeze frame this, and you can take a look at some of the others to see whether or not you have a memory. And again, I'm not going to tell you what the research into this is, in case anybody has a dual coexisting timeline, time shift living dead memory of any of these people. You can let me know. Okay, let's go on to the next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this is obviously worldwide. In every other country, there'd be lists too, but we just don't have them.
Well, some of these people are international. And I do have international people, but, this is just a list that I put together. Hey, by the way, didn't you tell me that you yourself had a Mandela dual timeline memory?
Are you talking about the false one?
Well,
or the real ones?
I don't know. I don't know which it is with you. This is the first time we're talking about false memories and the Mandela effect. So now people know, yeah.
I think it's quite funny that how I got into the Mandela effect actually was before I heard you on Coast to Coast, which must have been back in the 2009 sort of time frame. And it was through the Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Snow White. I was absolutely sure that it was Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Well, okay. Don't go there yet, because
I won't go.
We're gonna deal with that. So tell your story when you get there. But so in this whole Mandela effect false memory operation, were you drawn into that?
Yeah, I think I was at first drawn into the false memory operation, but then it actually led me to you and your Coast to Coast. So had I not sort of heard about those things, I probably wouldn't have been so interested in what you were saying. And then I was like, but hang on a minute, actually, this woman, she seems to really know her stuff. And then I sort of switched off from the Mandela effect, and I actually joined your Yahoo group back in the day, the one that I guess Belle was a member of, because I just knew you knew what you were talking about. Like you were saying how the people you just spoke to, the famous was it Clint? Sorry, I've forgotten his name, but
Clint Walker.
Clint Walker, how he looked in your eyes and just knew that you were telling the truth. I think I had that same feeling when I heard you on Coast to Coast. Yeah. I just thought, this lady, she's explaining it. She knows this is it. This is the real story here. And then I sort of switched off from all the rest, and I just started following your work as much as I could.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I do know that, we did one previous show years ago on the Mandela effect. And I know that you told me that this show we're doing right now was more of the show you really wanted to do, but we needed to get the other stuff out of the way in that first stuff. Let's go on to the next.
Okay, so how Starfire Tor's pioneering time shift effect discoveries became a Mandela Effect false memory operation.
Right. Okay. So here you see I have Mandela in a little computer screen. And you can see that the Mandela effect goes into people's brains. And then if it's not your own brain that's mixing things up because of BICO, then you're being influenced by so many people now saying, oh yeah, I remember he died in prison. Oh yeah, I remember he died in prison. This is where the false memory starts. Sorry, but this is how your brain works. It's a mass false memory remembering. Your brain has messed up. And the way that you don't get messed up and the way that you undo the damage, which is what the show is also about, is you do your own research. You have to go back in time. The context of history is absolutely primary to teaching your brain how not to fool you into misremembering whatever that misremembering is, and whether it's the Mandela effect or some other part of your life. This is your brain. Take control. Let's go on to the next.
Okay. How Snow White and the Evil Queen's magic mirror became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Okay, so here we go now. We're now going to tackle most of the major Mandela effects, and we're going to show you what they are really and how you find out what they are. So here you will see these panels that I put up. So on the upper left, this is the original Brothers Grimm story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was called Little Snow White, and it goes back to 1812. In the book, Little Snow White, the Brothers Grimm, who collected stories from their homeland, they collected fairy tales and they put them into their book. And when they originally wrote it, it's mirror, mirror on the wall. Okay? That's the big thing with the Mandela effect. Is it mirror, mirror on the wall? Is it magic mirror on the wall? So I'm going to show you what it really is and how confusing this is for people's brains and memories. And once you see this, you're going to realize what it really is. This is the most confusing one of all. Okay. So we have the Brothers Grimm back in 1812. That's when they first published it. So in the book, I don't know how many of you have ever read the actual Brothers Grimm version, but their version is the version. And it's mirror. The Wicked Queen says mirror, mirror on the wall. The word magic is used in other places in the book, but the words of the Wicked Queen are mirror, mirror on the wall. Okay, now, in 1937, along comes the Disney animated movie, and this time, instead of saying what the Brothers Grimm said, which is mirror, mirror on the wall, Disney changed it to magic mirror on the wall. That has never changed. Now, in 1993, pardon me. In 1993, Disney re-released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They re-released the 1937 version. And I saw a poster advertising this, and above this picture of the Wicked Queen in front of the mirror, it says, mirror, mirror on the wall. And I thought, well, that's very strange. I said, because the movie says magic mirror on the wall. No, I had read the original book of the Brothers Grimm, so I knew that it was mirror, mirror on the wall. And I'd seen the Disney movie prior to this re-release, and I knew that it said magic mirror on the wall. This wasn't a big deal to me because I had historical context. I had read the Grimm's Brothers book, so I knew that Disney had changed it. Now, here's the interesting part. I'm trying to research this, and in 1994, the actress who actually played Snow White in the 1937 Disney animated version, she sang, she spoke. She was awarded a Disney legend, and there was what's called a presser. And I had been doing research with Disney, their marketing department, trying to figure out why that poster said mirror, mirror on the wall when it was for the 1937 Disney movie, which had magic mirror. I was confused, and I wanted to know how that happened. And according to their marketing department back in 1993, that was just an oversight. Somebody was putting it together based on the Brothers Grimm and not the Disney movie, and nobody was watching the shop. And that's what it was. But during this, I was invited to go to the presser because there was the actress. And you had about 60 seconds. Each person had about 60 seconds in which to interview this actress. And I had planned everything out. So basically, without going into the details, I was able to ask her whether or not she remembers whether the wicked stepmother said magic mirror or mirror, mirror on the wall. Now, this is not her dialogue, but did she have any knowledge about it? And she sort of stops. She thinks, that's so funny. She says, in the original Disney script, it said mirror, mirror on the wall in the script for the 1937 Disney movie. She said, but Mr. Disney changed it to magic mirror on the wall because his whole thing with his Disney was the wonderful world of magic, the magic of Disney. I said, oh, so was that recorded? She said, oh, no. That was changed right away. And mirror, mirror on the wall was never recorded. She said it was only always magic mirror on the wall. Great. Okay. But things now can confuse more people. As we look at the middle column, you see that's a children's book, a storybook, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, that was put out by a lot of different publishers right after the movie to capitalize on that. And depending on who the publisher was, depends on whether they have in that book magic mirror on the wall or mirror, mirror on the wall. Talk about confusing. Okay, again, oversight. Look at the fourth panel that I have up there. That's a movie with Julia Roberts called Mirror, Mirror. Now, nobody owned the rights to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at that time because it was out of copyright. So all non-Disney affiliated movies or TV series that do anything related to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, no matter what the script reads, they say mirror, mirror on the wall. And then you have, of course, the more recent Snow White movie, that was Disney, that said mirror, mirror on the wall. Okay, so the 1937, this is the wrap up, the 1937 Disney movie always said magic mirror on the wall. The Brothers Grimm original book from 1812, and it was republished many times, says mirror, mirror on the wall. If you see other movies which can confuse you, like Mirror, Mirror with Julia Roberts, that says mirror, mirror on the wall. And the more current Snow White movie says magic mirror on the wall because it's Disney. That's it. So you can see how a false memory can happen because this is really convoluted. But there, I've unraveled it for you. Okay. Let's move on to the next.
Okay. How the C-3PO character from the Star Wars movies became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. This is all about C-3PO's silver leg. Yes, C-3PO always had a silver leg, but there's a lot of confusion here that could fool people unintentionally that he was always just all golden. No, no, no. Look at the left photo there. Do you see that? That's a still frame from the original Star Wars movie, and you can clearly see one of his legs is silver. Well, George Lucas did that on purpose because C-3PO is a redo. He has different pieces and parts to make him whole again. So he wants to remind the audience that C-3PO is a rebuild, okay? And that Luke Skywalker and his family are part of that rebuild. However, in some of the movie, because of the way that it's filmed, his golden other leg can sometimes reflect onto the silver leg, giving him a sort of that silver leg a golden hue. That right there can confuse your brain. A lot of the times, C-3PO, his lower part is behind some scenery, behind R2-D2, behind this, behind that, so you don't really see his legs. But look at the center photo. That is the actor, Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO. Yeah, there's a human inside of not only C-3PO, but there's a human inside of R2-D2 as well. All right? And you see him, he's sitting in the middle of pieces and parts of his C-3PO costume. And if you look there on the left, that leg is silver. And you look on the right, and everything else is either all golden or there's a little bit of black to it. So that's it. Now, just to show you how confusing things can become even more with your brain is look on the right. Those are some of the first collectibles for Star Wars. I actually have the one on the left there. Depending on who was putting out these figures, including Kenner, they made them all gold. So I have that too. I looked at them and why is this all gold? Why don't they have the silver leg here? Well, they didn't. And they only started making the silver leg after that mistake was discovered, and they really wanted to be more accurate. And folks, that's all there is to it. So it's either because you watched the movie and you just missed seeing the silver leg, or the gold leg was reflecting onto the silver, giving it a golden hue, or you have collectibles or you saw these collectibles and they're gold or some shade of gold. That's what happened to you. So if you think that he always had a gold leg in the movie, that's a false memory. And this is how it got all confused. And then you have other people saying, oh yeah, he always totally gold, never had a silver leg. No. That's a false memory. And so somewhere in here, if you have a memory of that, this is how it happened to you. It's up to you to figure out which one it is. Okay, let's move on to the next.
Okay. How pivotal Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker Star Wars dialogue became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. Well, yeah, Star Wars have two Mandela Effect biggies. And this one's also going to be described to you. So in the Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, the big Mandela Effect question is, did Darth Vader say, Luke, I am your father? No, he never said those words. Context, again, context is very important. In the scene where Luke and Vader are in this ferocious battle, face to face, this is when Luke Skywalker learns that Obi-Wan Kenobi had lied to him about Darth Vader killing his father. This is where he learns that Darth Vader is his father. So even though the gist of it is the actual words are, no, I am your father, and not, Luke, I am your father. You know, the gist is there. Darth Vader's his father, okay? But the context, the way that George Lucas wrote it, is really important. If you understood the context, you would understand why it was always, no, I am your father. And here's the context. It starts with Darth Vader says, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. And Luke Skywalker, who's in a very precarious situation, says, he told me enough. He told me you killed him. And Darth Vader says, no. In other words, he's refuting what Obi-Wan Kenobi said. He goes, no, I am your father. And that's the context. You see? Context matters. There, solved. And that's why when you hear somebody say, Luke, I am your father, you heard that because it's been said that way on comedy shows. It's been referred to in some actually TV shows. You've heard other people say it just conversationally. It's the gist of it, but it's not correct. It's out of context. It was written, no, I am your father. There you go. Okay, next one.
How the Looney Tunes cartoon became a Mandela Effect false memory. Is the Warner Brothers cartoon spelled Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes? When you become informed, the answer can only be Looney Tunes.
Tunes in Tunes. Okay. Again, this is how you teach your brain how not to get things mixed up, because the Looney Tunes mix up, whether it's Toons or Tunes, can really be confusing. And it's just ripe for false memories. Then you have the Mandela Effect, not encouraging you to do a deep dive into the history of these products. And I'm sorry to say this, folks, but a lot of the Mandela Effect was put out there to keep the Mandela Effect going because it benefited the person who originally started the Mandela Effect and a few other people who did podcasts on it. They got monetized. Not everybody who did a podcast, is to blame here, but a lot of people promoted the Mandela Effect because they benefited from it in some way. I'm sorry, but that did happen. So, okay, Looney Tunes. Context. So on the left is Disney's very successful thing called Silly Symphony cartoons, and they ran from 1929 to 1939. Now, I would say that most of you alive today and who are watching this have never seen Silly Symphony tunes, at least not originally from 1929 to 1939. You may have seen some in some repeat on Disney Channel, but so Silly Symphonies. Okay. Now, Warner Brothers saw how successful the Disney Silly Symphonies was. And so they did something called Looney Tunes. Tunes, that's Tunes. Now, of course, tune, Toons, is a diminutive version of cartoon, but that only became super popular after 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That film, great film, by the way, they talked about these cartoon characters as tunes. Cartoon characters from Disney and Warner Brothers were in that movie, and these tunes were actual living, and they lived in Toon Town, Toon Town. Okay. Now, so Warner Brothers back in 1930 really wanted a piece of the action here that Disney had with their Silly Symphonies. So they wanted to be very competitive. Here's how they did it. They took the word silly, and what's another word for silly back in those days, 1930? Loony. So silly for Warner Brothers became loony. Now, what's another word for symphony, which is music? Tunes. Tunes. Musical tunes. That's why it was always called Looney Tunes, spelled Tunes. And to this very day, it's still called Looney Tunes. Even though Disney's Silly Symphony are no longer made, Looney Tunes, Tunes by Warner Brothers, are still made. Okay? Now, here's another thing that some of you missed. Again, if you looked at things in context and you did the prerequisite research, this is you opening your brain gates and feeding your brain these memories, which are the ones you need not to have a false memory and not to get tricked by the Mandela Effect false memory operation. Okay, this is Warner Brothers continuing with their silly symphonies. They did something called Merry Melodies, but they wanted to compete with Disney's Mickey Mouse. There's Mickey Mouse on the left. Oh, a twofer here. Mickey Mouse does not have suspenders. That was another Mandela thing. Does not have suspenders. There's in 1929, never had them. His pants look like he needs them, but he never had them. Okay? So now we look at the third panel, and there is Merry Melodies, but doesn't that character look quite a bit like Mickey Mouse? What do you think, Pigtail Gurl?
Yeah, it looks like a complete rip-off.
Right. So, but they called this character Foxy the Mouse, and if you look,
I can't believe they were even allowed to do it. To be honest,
well, they only did it for 3 episodes, and then never to be seen again. Here, the mouse looks so like Mickey Mouse, but Mickey Mouse has a little thin mouse tail.
Mm-hmm.
Foxy Mouse has a foxy bushy tail. Plus, Foxy's ears are a little different. They're round, but they have a little like triangle at the top. Anyway, Warner Brothers, this didn't last long. Merry Melodies did last, but Little Foxy Mouse did not, for the very reason that you mentioned. And then on the right is just 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's great movie.
Brilliant movie.
Yeah. So now you know, it was always Looney Tunes, Tunes. That's it, folks. As they say in Looney Tunes.
That is actually how I remember it. I don't have any false memories on that one.
Well, a lot of people do. That's why it was a big part of the Mandela Effect. All right. Looney Tunes, really. Okay, next one, please.
Okay, so here we have how the Sex and the City TV series and movie became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. Now, this brings the false memory operation. Again, this is context. This is you having to put real memories in your head so your brain won't be fooled when all this Mandela Effect false stuff comes up. This is about Sex and the City. And they go, no, it's Sex and the City. No, it's Sex in the City. And this is the Mandela Effect question mark. Well, it really isn't a question mark. You see, the show is always called Sex and the City. But when you say it sort of colloquially, it comes out Sex and the City. So that word in is an and, it's blurred. But that's not where the real problem comes in. The real problem came in for some people because there is a knockoff product. Sex and the City, the legit show, had a perfume line. And it was called Sex and the City, named after the show and the movie. But a knockoff started called Sex in the City, also perfume line. Here, I have both of them for you to look at. Please take a look. Sex and the City on the left, Sex in the City, not legitimate, on the right. That's it. So it's easy to confuse some people who were into the Mandela Effect on behalf of the Mandela Effect said, yeah, they've seen it, the perfume, look, Sex in the City. No, Sex in the City. That's how they get confused. And then the sound of it, Sex in the City. Which is it? What word am I saying? And or in? Which is it, Pigtail Gurl?
I would say Sex and the City is how I remember it.
Well, you're just too smart.
Well, I actually did a tour for Sex and the City movie release years ago as the official DJ in Asia. A little bit of info for you.
Okay, well, there. See, now you have a living experience. I didn't know that. You have a living experience. So you work for that outfit to do that. And so you always knew it was Sex and the City because you have a personal experience. But the majority of people who got this confused because of the Mandela Effect false operation don't have a personal experience with the show or the movie.
That's it. But
So
can I just ask you, do the names of movies ever change with the Mandela Effect, though?
no, everything that's ever been reported for the Mandela Effect is a false memory.
Uh-huh.
But when it comes to the time shift effect, sure, a movie name can change, dialogue can change. All of that's very real, but not with the Mandela effect.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
Every single one that they do is a false memory. They all lead back to false memories. So that's why I'm saying that people are attracted to there being multiple timelines, multiple memories of multiple timelines. That's real. That's a time shift effect. That's a time shift living dead. That's all those things. And I'm showing how only the Mandela effect, everything in the Mandela effect is a false memory operation.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we go on?
Okay. How the Monopoly Man became a Mandela Effect false memory. The Monopoly Man never wore a monocle in any official product artwork. The false monocle memories that the Monopoly Man had a monocle originated from and was promoted and harvested by the Mandela Effect false memory operation.
Right. Now, the image of the Monopoly Man was inspired by the well-known financial dealings, railroad business, and personal style of J.P. Morgan and also Otto Kahn. Both men had mustaches, and on many occasions they both wore a formal suit, top hats, pointy shoes, and carried a cane. Neither man wore a monocle. Now here, I've put the Monopoly Man, no monocle, in the middle, and on the left you see J.P. Morgan, and on the right you see Otto Kahn. Probably more than likely, Otto Kahn was the image used for the Monopoly Man. Okay, but it's really important to understand that the original Monopoly box, which I have in the middle here, that box was created and made from 1935 to 1936. The Monopoly Man's in the middle, no monocle. Okay, up at the top here you see this is from 1985. There's an upgrade. The monocle man's coming out of the center of the O, carrying his cane, top hat, mustache. That's very much why I'm saying he's Otto Kahn. No monocle. The look on the left, false memory Monopoly Man. See the monocle? Put that monocle on him. I did it. I did it. Show you how easy it is. There's no Monopoly game that has ever had a monocled Monopoly Man. If there's a rip-off game, that's possible. But no authentic Monopoly game has ever, because none of the two men that this was modeled after, ever wore a monocle. But it's easy to understand why people put a false memory in their head, because men with monocles was very fashionable back in the day. And you could see it in movies. I mean, you have channels that play movies from the silent era, 20s and 30s and 40s, 50s, where you saw men in monocles with top hats and these suits. And so it's very ingrained in people's brains. You didn't have to live back in that day to understand that monocles were used. So this is where your brain stores that information from movies and stuff like that. And then when they say, hey, the Monopoly Man always had a monocle, and you see that in your brain, you go, wait a minute, didn't he have a monocle? Because you are overlaying that memory from movies and from real life of the monocle. And then, of course, there's Mr. Peanut. The character of Mr. Peanut had the top hat, a cane, and a monocle. And a lot of people got Mr. Peanut, again, mixed up with the Monopoly Man. And that's one of the ways. But it's not, Mr. Peanut is not the main reason why there's a false memory. There's a false memory because in history, men really did wear those monocles. Why they did, I don't know. I mean, you have to put it in your eye socket. You have to hold it in. I mean, eyeglasses with two frames sitting on your nose and behind your ear were invented before the monocle. It was just an affectation thing. But this is where it got put into people's brains because of the movies, seeing people wear them. Okay, famous actors, famous movies, men wearing monocles. And I have another little image of the Monopoly Man. Again, no monocle. One more thing I want to show folks. In the right here, you see a photo of a woman. I just want to give her due. Because very much like my own work gets poached by certain people. And a lot of people don't know that it's my research that's behind a lot of the things that they're very interested in. This woman's name is Elizabeth Maggie. She created something in 1904 called the Landlord's Game. This is actually the origin of the Monopoly game. And her picture was actually on it. Other people came along and claimed that they were the originator. It got proved in court and in other ways that it's this woman. It was a real estate game. And it was this woman who came up with it. So I want to give Elizabeth her due. Okay. Next one, please.
How the Berenstain Bears books and franchise became a Mandela Effect false memory.
This is a really good one. Again, some of this false memory comes from knockoff products, and other it comes from people putting this in your brain. All right. So it is the Berenstain Bears. Okay. Berenstain. It is not authentically spelled EIN. No. Okay. So what I did here was on the left, Storytime Collection. This is an authentic Berenstain Bears book with the correct spelling of the Berenstain name, which is the name of the family who created the series. This is their name. And this is why they were called the Berenstain Bears. Okay? Now, if you take a look on this left column, you'll see it spelled properly as the family spelled its name, A-I-N at the end. Here, this is a knockoff book. The one in the middle, spelled E-I-N. There are knockoff books. People who create non-legitimate books, spell it that way, think they're going to get away with it. But also, there are people online who digitally change this to mess with your head. They're doing it to just put this into the zeitgeist to say, oh, look what I have. It's spelled that way. Nah, this was created by somebody digitally. Look at the one on the right. This is a digital meme that was created to show you that the Mandela Effect is a false memory operation. I didn't create this, but I did find it and the background to it. So here you see the Berenstain Bears are with the wrong spelling, E-I-N, and then they have the Mandela Effect there, and then there's Mandela on it. And there are a lot of memes digitally created of the Berenstain books spelled incorrectly just to promote and mess with your heads, the Mandela Effect. So, people, it's Berenstain Bears, A-I-N. That's the family name. Okay? Everything else is just messing with your head. That's it. Please go on to the next.
Okay, how the Fruit of the Loom logo became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. This is a big Mandela wonderment. People claiming that they remember that there's a cornucopia behind the fruit of the loom. And I'm going to show you how to teach your brain how to understand that fruit of the loom never, ever, ever had a cornucopia behind that mass of fruit. Okay? And knowing how to do the research so that people do not put false memories into your brain and you don't put false memories into your brain. Okay. A cornucopia is also called the Horn of Plenty, and that's been around for thousands of years. And the expression fruit of the loom means the product of the loom. It was an expression. It goes back hundreds of years. So fruit of the loom, there you see in the middle, they had characters dressed up as their fruit in the fruit of the loom, even the little leaves. You don't see anybody dressed up as a cornucopia. When you see photos of them, you don't see them in a commercial with a cornucopia, because fruit of the loom is an expression that goes back hundreds of years. It could be fruit of my loins, fruit of my this, fruit of my that. Fruit of means the product that is mine, that which comes from me. And fruit of the loom, the company, puts out textiles, cotton, and how is it made? On looms. So they took the expression fruit of my loins, which means my children, and they changed it to mean fruit of a loom. This is the product of my loom. And once you understand that, you cannot be fooled. Okay? So now the Fruit of the Loom logo, that was created in 1893. Like you see on the left, but there are various iterations of it. But it always has those Fruit of the Loomy looms there. That fruit and the leaves. Now, they could have put a loom behind it, but that was getting complex, and who needed it? Everybody in those days knew the expression, fruit of my fill-in, whatever it was. So fruit of a loom made complete sense back then. Today, people today, unless you're that old, back in those times, you don't know that that was a colloquial, well-known expression. Okay? So the Fruit of a Loom company actually probably got a lot of good publicity from the Mandela Effect. And they were aware of it, even though they've said, no, we've never had a cornucopia, and they never did. And by the way, that cornucopia one on the right, I made that. I found a lovely little cornucopia that I liked. I took the Fruit of a Loom symbol, the one on the left, and I just laid it over it, and I made it. And that's what everybody else has done who's tried to fool you into it. That. No, that's the one I made there, okay? But what the Fruit of a Loom company did on April Fool's Day in 2022, they actually put on their website their Fruit of a Loom logo with a cornucopia. And they said, April Fool's Day. Unfortunately, this backfired as far as the Mandela Effect, because people were saying, you look, you see, there it is. There's the cornucopia. It's on their website. Uh-huh. Nah, they said it was April Fool's, and then by the next day, it was gone. So for those of you who think because they saw it on their website that there's a cornucopia, sorry, folks, no. Now, in people's brains, a cornucopia and fruit go hand in hand, no matter what country you're in. Cornucopia, Fruit of the Loom, nope, never had it. So your brain knows that fruit that looks like that comes in a cornucopia. It's the Horn of Plenty. It goes back to the ancient days, thousands of years ago. And that's how the false memory of the Mandela Effect got going. You either did it to yourself or people just influenced you because they kept saying, look, now, there's one more thing. There are knockoff Fruit of the Loom product. And some of them do put a cornucopia on it and some of them don't. You really got to be very careful when you want to buy the real deal, and I always suggest buying the real deal. Watch it. If you see it has a cornucopia on it, on the label, no, 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 no. That is not Fruit of the Loom. That's all I'm saying. Okay. On to the next, please.
Oh, okay. How Pikachu from Pokemon became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Yeah. Okay, folks. This one's pretty simple. Pokemon is a media franchise, and it first came out in 1996. I mean, it's just huge. It's just a huge franchise, including video games, animated series, films, trading cards, role-playing games, even reality games. In fact, Pokemon is estimated to be the world's highest grossing media franchise. And the big thing with the Mandela effect is some people claim that Pikachu only always had just a yellow end of his tail. And some people claim Pikachu it had some black on the end of his tail. Okay, I'm going to solve that for you and show you how it's done. Pikachu on the right, that's the real Pikachu. Pikachu only has a yellow tail with a little bit of brownish at the tail end where the rear is. Everything else is yellow. Now, if you look in the middle, you see a little Pikachu with black on the end. I did that. It was easy. I just drew a little black on the end of his tail, and that's how easy it is for other people to mess with your head. To say, oh, look, here's one I found. No, they're just messing with you, and they're promoting the Mandela effect as a false memory operation. But hey, wait a minute. There's another false memory where your brain, if you follow Pokemon, there's a little character called Pichu. Now, in the Pokemon series, a character like Pikachu is part of the development of the character. They start off looking like, well, as far as Pikachu is concerned, little Pichu. Goes on to Pikachu and evolves. Okay, look at Pichu. That's little Pikachu baby. Okay, Pichu has a black tail. And has a little black collar too. Has a little black on his ears, just like Pikachu does. Has a little red pinky cheeks. So people who are into Pokemon or have seen some of the Pokemon cards or Pokemon characters are mixing up Pichu with Pikachu. So it's either that they're being messed with by the Mandela effect people who are promoting the black on the end of the tail, and you're just they've just, like an earworm, they've gotten into your brain compartmentalized, or you've actually seen some form of Pichu and who does have a black tail. That's it, folks. That's all there is to it. And how easy it is to not get messed up, whether your own brain has compartmentalized this and you brought it up improperly, you've mixed it up yourself. Open your brain gates the way we're showing you right here, and you'll never have that problem again. Okay, next one, please.
How Curious George became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Curious George was first published in 1941. And he's appeared in over 200 books, movies, animated TV series, and a whole lot more. And some people, though, seem to remember him with having a tail. No, Curious George never had a tail. He was actually fashioned after a young chimpanzee. A chimpanzee is a great ape, like an orangutan or a gorilla. Great apes do not have tails, but all monkeys do have tails, whether it's a little stubby tail, a small tail, medium tail, long tail, doesn't matter. Apes, no tail. Monkeys, a tail. So Curious George, no tail. But there are some people on the internet who drew a tail on him. Just messing with your head again, okay? So, Curious George also has gotten confused with two other apes and or monkeys. The fictional monkeys, Abu and Boots, are two that come to mind.
Boots is a monkey seen in Dora the Explorer since 2000. Boots is a monkey with a tail. Some people mix him up with Curious George. They are cartoon characters with similar mannerisms. And then we've got Abu. Abu was added to the Aladdin story in Disney's 1992 animated movie. Abu is a monkey with a tail. He is sometimes confused with Curious George because they both have brown fur. So the original Aladdin story, though, was published in 1709.
With no Abu. That's just something that the Disney people did. Okay? So basically, if you ever see a Curious George with a tail, either somebody drew it on to mess with your head, or it's a knockoff. Beware. Okay, that's your answer. Curious George, no tail, never had it. Nope, nope, nope. Next one, please.
How the Arctic and the countries of New Zealand and Greenland became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. Now, this is a whole other way that a Mandela Effect false memory can come in when we're talking about the Arctic and New Zealand and Greenland. All of them have become Mandela Effect wonderments. And it's the key here is understanding that not all maps are the same. And in particular, navigation maps from the old days, and some of them are used today. This flat map is called a Mercator projection map. And it's the Mercator projection map which has brought about all of the Mandela Effect landmass problems. Once you recognize a Mercator projection map from all other types of maps, including accurate globes and accurate maps, you'll see how easy it is for you to determine what is a time shift effect, a real time shift effect where something has moved. And believe me, land masses have moved, but not the ones mentioned in the Mandela Effect. Those are all people not understanding what they're looking at. Okay? Again, deep dive, history, that teaches your brain. Okay? So in the Mercator map, it takes a globe, the concept of a globe, because the Earth is round except in the middle where it bulges out a little bit. That's the equator. And so the Mercator, took the globe and opened it up like a cylinder, laid it flat, projected land masses onto it, so that as farther away from the equator that you get, the more distorted land masses become. If you look at the top here, Greenland, oh, that's way too big for Greenland. As far as the Arctic is concerned, most of it's missing from the map. And by the way, I'm sorry to say this, but there's no landmass at the North Pole. Yeah, that kind of does in the whole Santa Claus thing, but perhaps there's another reason why Santa Claus and the elves and the reindeers are up there, but just want you all know that's reality. And then when you go down to Antarctica, a lot of that is missing from the Mercator map, but hey, a lot of landmass at Antarctica. So at the North Pole, all that ice there, that's actually sitting on the sea, sitting on water. But the ice at the Antarctic, most of that is sitting on a landmass. You're welcome. Okay, now also with the Mercator map, a lot of times the entire country of New Zealand is either missing or it's misplaced. So there's a whole big thing about where's New England, where's New Zealand? Oops. Okay, let's go on to the next and we'll make some discoveries.
How the country of Greenland became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Okay, so I showed you before that Greenland is way too big, and here in the middle is the same map that was larger on the panel before. Okay, I created these two images for you here. On the left, underneath is the real size of Africa, and then if you were to think that Greenland is actually that size that's seen in the Mercator projection map, I took that and I put it over Africa. Oh gosh, that's wrong. That makes it look like Greenland and Africa are the same size, or maybe even Greenland's larger. But in reality, look on the right, Africa is 14 times larger than Greenland. Ooh, okay. So this has fooled a lot of people who buy into the false memory operation of the Mandela effect. Remember, I have to remind you, there are such things as multiple timelines. There are such things as having memories from different timelines. Those are real. It's just that the Mandela effect representation of that is all a false memory operation. Okay. So if you're looking at the Mercator map and you see Greenland as being that big, and then you look at another map and you see it smaller, you think that land masses have changed because you're looking at two different timelines. But in this case, you're not. You're looking at different maps. Okay, let's move on to the next, please.
Let's move over to New Zealand and how the country of New Zealand became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. Well, as I showed you in the Mercator projection map, and all of these maps, these are 4 different maps that I'm showing you. They're all based on the Mercator projection map. The one on the upper left, you can see Australia kind of stretched out, and New Zealand is like totally missing. Totally missing. Okay. Now look at the other 3. All these 3 are the Mercator maps, but you can mostly tell a Mercator map because the longitude and latitude lines are just straightforward little boxes. And that's not how the world is shaped. So in each one of those, New Zealand's in a completely different place. In the one on the lower right, the bottom of New Zealand is equal to where the bottom of Tasmania is. Tasmania is part of New Zealand. No, that's not right. None of them are right. Not one single one of these maps, which are all different maps, are correct as far as New Zealand or even Australia are concerned. So depending on what map you're looking at. So you need to know about the Mercator map. And if you don't know about it, you can be tricked into thinking that New Zealand's missing or moved, that Greenland is missing or moved, bigger, smaller. Antarctica or the Arctic are completely different on this map than they are in real life. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Okay. Next, please.
How Jif peanut butter became a Mandela Effect false memory.
All right. This is a good one. And again, context, historical context matters. So I'll tell you right away, this peanut butter product has always been Jif, J-I-F. Always. Now, historically speaking, Jif peanut butter began as Big Top peanut butter in 1946. Okay? Now, Big Top peanut butter was renamed Jif peanut butter in 1955. It got bought out. So there it is. There's the original Jif. And very little about that J-I-F with the colors behind it, red, blue, and green, is that way to this day. Okay? Now, the next one is a jar of the current Jif peanut butter. They have different versions, but they all have Jif just that way on it. And the name Jif has never changed its spelling in any way. On the right, you see it says Jiffy. This is a fake Jiffy label that somebody made digitally, meant to cause a Jif label confusion just for the Mandela Effect crowd. Okay? Now, but wait a minute. How Jif is such a popular, well-known brand. How did people think that it was Jiffy when it's always been Jif? It wasn't that so much that somebody messing with their head with that Jiffy label. Yeah, that did mess with some people's heads. But the real false memory mix-up comes with Jiffy baking mix. Lower left, look at it. If you've been doing food shopping, chances are you may have come across some Jiffy product because they've been around since 1901 and they're still around. Loads and loads of products. Look at it. Jiffy. Okay? So the Jif peanut butter people are not going to be naming their product Jiffy. The name's taken. Not going to happen. And there'd be a product confusion. Now, look at that middle left one. That's Skippy peanut butter. That's a real product. So Skippy came around in 1932. Skippy came before Jif. That's important to know because Skippy, you don't want to name your product Jiffy. You know, even if there wasn't the baking mix company, you still, because the Skippy product came like 20 years before, that's a marketing confusion. Jiffy, Skippy. No, you want to be different. So it's always going to be Jif. For every reason in the world, marketing-wise, this is always going to be Jif. And there I have put a large emblem there so that you can put that in your brain and put all this information in your brain so that you cannot be confused. It was never called Jiffy. Next one, please.
How the Oscar Mayer name became a Mandela Effect false memory.
Right. Okay. This is another one. How is Oscar Mayer said? Okay. How it's pronounced, how it's spelled. Oscar Mayer, the man at the left there, that's Oscar Mayer. He spells his last name M-A-Y-E-R, not M-E-Y-E-R. Okay, let's go and look at Oscar Mayer on the left. He came from Germany to the United States. He was an entrepreneur. And in Germany, his name is spelled M-A-Y-E-R, Mayer. But like in other places, including the United States, the spelling of a name that pronounces as Meyer would be spelled M-E-Y-E-R. So that's confused a lot of people, okay? So Oscar Mayer, he actually started the Oscar Mayer Company in 1883. That's a long time. And even though Oscar Mayer knew that his name, the spelling of his name was different than in America, he wasn't going to change his family name just because he was in America and Americans wanted to spell it M-E-Y-E-R. So now look at the left middle. The name M-E-Y-E-R was digitally changed. I did that just to show how easy it is to do a digital confusion on purpose just to promote the Mandela effect, okay? All right, now, look at the little, the first Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was in 1936. And if you look at that, you'll see it's spelled M-A-Y-E-R. Never M-E-Y-E-R. No, 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 no. Look at the top. There is a more modern Wienermobile. They changed the name to Frankmobile in 2023. It's the same thing, Oscar Mayer, M-A-Y-E-R. Okay. Now, look below that. There's the Oscar Mayer truck from 1942. The name is spelled there, M-A-Y-E-R. His full name, Oscar Mayer, okay? It was always M-A-Y-E-R. Now, this is the cute part. I don't know whether you're into singing this, but there was a very famous Oscar Mayer commercial from 1974. Starred a little 4-year-old boy. And he was fishing in a pond, and he sings the Oscar Mayer theme song. Do you by any chance know it, Pigtail Gurl?
No, I don't. I've never heard it.
Okay.
I don't even know who this company is, to be honest. It's the first I've ever heard of them.
Well, probably because it's processed food, so maybe that's not something you eat. But here's how the song went. And because the company knew that people were getting very confused about the spelling and the pronunciation, and they wanted to, make a statement. So it goes, oh, and also the word baloney is Bologna. I'm surprised that didn't come out as a Mandela Effect thing too. Like, why isn't it spelled Bologna? Okay, so it goes, my baloney has a first name. It's Oscar. My baloney has a second name. It's Mayer. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I say, because Oscar Mayer has a way with Bologna. So right there, they're showing you the spelling and the pronunciation. Hey, so a lot of you may not have been around in 1974 when that commercial came out to straighten your brain out. But I'm telling you, any confusion, it's either your brain doing it because you're used to the name, Meyer being spelled Meyer, or somebody in the Mandela Effect orbit decided to mess with your heads and change the spelling. And that's it. Always Mayer. That's pretty much it, unless you have any questions, Pigtail Gurl?
No, I think that's been a great summary of how the mind can be tricked into false memories, and also that sort of groupthink, when a lot of people believe something, it affects what we believe and our own memories.
That's right. So once again, I just want to remind you that the thing that drew you into the Mandela Effect was your interest in there being multiple timelines, and that is real. That people can remember some things from more than one timeline, even though that thing may not even exist anymore in the dominant timeline. That's very real. I know, because I made those discoveries decades ago. I researched it, documented it, proved it. And I've been sharing this all over the world, from lectures, TV shows, radio, blogs, articles, you name it, I did it. Okay? So the Mandela Effect is a false memory operation, every single one of them. Leave it in your rear view mirror. Leave it behind. Learn about what a time shift effect is, and carry on wiser than you were before you watched the show, because we want you to continue your interest in the right stuff. And if you continue with the Mandela Effect, you're going to be incredibly involved in a false memory operation, and it's just going to mess with your head. Pigtail Gurl and I want you to know that this, as she was saying, the Mandela Effect is, a perfect medium to show you how your brain messes with you. And if you do the type of research I just showed you, historical context research, your brain cannot be fooled. You won't mix things up. You won't let the masses of people claiming that they have these memories, which again is a false memory themselves, it won't impact you. You'll know what reality is, and you'll know what an illusion is, what a false memory is. And as Pigtail Gurl said, please watch some of our other podcasts, because they do go into more depth on what the core matrix is, time shift effects, and all of this. Okay.
Yeah, and also following Starfire via her links in social media, because she often gets real evidence of actual time shifts that she shares there. So you can be opening your brain gates and front loading yourself with the real information, with the real fascinating topic of time shifts, and seeing actual evidence of true time shifts.
Right. I always provide evidence. And You're right. The great thing about learning from our podcast, because these are little tutorials, they're easy to listen to, easy to watch. They're to help you catch up on all of this so that you can open your brain gates. And if you binge watch it, that's even better, because they are done like in a row. So even though some of them are standalones, most of them are one leads to the next, like a really, really, really good TV series. So we want you to do that.
Yeah, and it'll keep you going. If you're in the winter zone now, in the Northern Hemisphere can keep you going through those long winter evenings.
Right.
And now you've learned the truth about the Mandela Effect false memory operation, and also the truth about the real time shift effect from the woman who discovered it through her own research, Starfire Tor. I would love it if you would share this podcast far and wide, because sharing is caring, because it's so important in this day and age for people to know truth. If we are all seekers of truth, then we must also share the truth when we come upon it. It's really an act of loving service that you can do for other people, and also for us, taking the time to give you this information. So please, please, please share this far and wide and help the Time Chronicles get to every person that needs to hear it.
Thank you, Pigtail Gurl. I completely agree with you. Well said. I just want to add one small little thing, and that is, yes, on the show we wanted to give you all the answers to the Mandela effect, and we've done that. But to a higher calling, we wanted to help you to be at one with your brain, to open your brain gates so that you can't be fooled or can't be as easily fooled, whether it's the Mandela effect or whatever else comes into your life. Lots of people want to influence you to do a lot of things, including in the marketing business and the advertising business. So please share this with your friends, your family, your pages, your groups, right into Mandela Effect groups. Please do it, because we did the show for you. Thank you so very much.
And one more thing I'd like to mention is that we do have a fundraiser for this podcast.
There is no other podcast in the whole world that can bring you the unique and amazing information that we do. And we love sharing our knowledge with you.
But it does take a lot of time, energy, and resources to make this podcast happen. We know that times are hard for a lot of people, including us.
So, if you can, and we know that some of you can, please be the angels beneath our wings and donate to our much-needed fundraiser.
The link is on every podcast's page. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for traveling with us and listening to this episode of the Time Chronicles. And we hope you will subscribe, like, and share, and see us on the next exciting episode.